When it comes to skincare, you might find it a little off-putting to start with the instructions to not shower. Not that that's what I'm recommending. However, the beginning of this book, Clean, The New Science of Skin by James Hamblin, he starts by letting everybody know that he has not showered in 5 years and then proceeds to take apart the skincare industry. So today I am talking with my good friend and colleague, Rachel Pontillo, and we are just going to dive into everything skincare. Rachel, thanks so much for being here.
Well, thanks so much for having me. It's always a pleasure.
So why don't you start by letting us know just a little bit about who you are, and that from that people understand why I've chosen to speak to you about this topic.
Absolutely. Well, I'm a plant-based skincare formulator, educator, as well as a brand consultant. I'm also an herbalist, licensed esthetician, and a functional nutrition practitioner. So I come at the skin, I view the skin and I view skincare brands as something that has more to do with what's good for the skin and what's good for the health, because the skin is our largest organ and it is responsible for so many of our functions, our key functions, and it's linked to our internal organs. So I educate people on how to make products that are actually supportive of the skin's structure and functions rather than trying to usurp them or undo them. And I also try to do so in a way that's very loving and kind to the skin as well as to people in general and the planet. So that's really what I'm all about. I teach online skincare formulation courses as well as skin wellness to estheticians, health coaches, and nutritionists in a professional training course that I've developed. So I look at the skin from the inside and the outside. I know the industry well, and I'm happy to share my thoughts.
And you said something so important about the health of the skin. And before I started reading this book, I thought I was doing pretty well. You and I have talked about the fact that I happen to be someone who has some chemical sensitivities. So I don't use a lot of skincare products that have fragrances or other things in them because it's very overwhelming for me. But man, this book was eye-opening about some of the things that the industry does.
Yeah, it's a tricky industry. And I think nowadays we're in a state where we have a mix of awareness spreading and education, legitimate education that is based on both history and science, spreading in a positive way, in a logical way. But we also do have some fear mongering.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to lie, we've got some conspiracy theories happening that, kind of throw that balance off and are getting in the way. And then we also have backlash from not just the product side of the industry, but also the aesthetics industry, the practitioners who have been taught conventionally this entire time. And I'm starting to see all of these Instagram posts and blog posts saying things like, oh, 2020 was a really bad year for science in skincare. And that could not be further from the truth, because skincare is scientific, just like food is scientific. It's a bunch of molecules smushed together and blended up and put in a bottle. Just like when you cook food, you're mixing up molecules, you cook it, there's a chemical reaction that happens. It is science, whether you're using chemicals or whether you're using plants. There is chemistry involved, there's biology involved, there's microbiology involved, there's all sorts of things happening. So it was not what they're trying to say, what they're trying to imply is that if you're not buying into this conventional model of retinols and hyaluronic acid and peptides and stem cells and these science-based skincare products and ingredients, that means that you're like anti-science in skincare. And that's not, it doesn't have to be one or the other. There's plenty of science that goes into planning out skincare that's made with plants, just like when you are looking to create a recipe to nourish your body from the inside out. You put some thought into it. You look at the nutrients, you look at the flavors. It's a very similar thing between, I like to say the skincare we eat with our healthy diet and the skincare we put on our skin topically.
Well, and one of the things I think that's so hard for so many consumers is there's a lot of confusing information out there. There's a lot of conflicting information out there
Yeah,
as well. And some things that we're led to believe are benign may not be as benign as you think. You and
right,
I were talking right before we started about the use of essential oils, for
right.
example.
Yeah.
Can you
So
share a little insight on that?
I would love to, because I think it's something that is important to spread awareness about, because essential oils are so popular now. They are more popular than they've ever been. And I'm going to call it out. It's because of the MLM essential oil companies and how prevalent they are, and how they target usually moms who are looking for a side hustle. And I'm not knocking the MLM industry. I do certainly have thoughts about it. But when we have mass production
Yeah.
of essential oils, which, when we look at the chemistry, the compounds that are in essential oils, they are powerful, they are strong, and they are meant to be used and learned about with the same level of respect that pharmaceutical drugs require. Because honestly, when used inappropriately, they can do just about as much damage as a pharmaceutical drug when used inappropriately. And unfortunately, I would say the vast majority of people who are selling essential oils and even formulating with essential oils have not had a proper aromatherapy or phytochemistry or even herbalist training to even learn about these different compounds and what they do. And excuse me, we see it talked about how, oh, there's so much better to use essential oils to scent your products naturally than it is to use synthetic fragrances or fragrance blends. And that's true. Okay. When we're talking about synthetic fragrances and even natural fragrance oils or natural fragrance blends, if the word fragrance or parfum, P-A-R-F-U-M, which is French for perfume, is on the label, that means that you're dealing with a blend that has probably close to 1,000 ingredients, individual ingredients in it, that are all protected by trade secret law. You will never know what is in those fragrances. And even if it says natural fragrance, there might be something that is naturally derived, but there also will be kind of nature identical counterparts in there that may or may not be biocompatible. So I always advise people to avoid the use of the word fragrance, using products that have the word fragrance or parfum. And also, many people don't know that unscented is also a fragrance.
Yeah,
So
that's right. Because it just like in laundry products and other things like that, it can actually be a masking
it
fragrance.
is. That's exactly right. It's meant to make it smell clean or smell fresh or smell neutral, because the fact of the matter is, lots of our ingredients in skincare, whether it's natural or synthetic, they don't smell great on their own. They smell a little funky. Some of them smell like, I don't know, a little fishy sometimes, a
Yeah,
little
yeah.
medicinal sometimes. And that's not something that, people are going to say, oh, this is fun to apply to my face. You don't want to feel like you're putting medicine on your face. You want to feel like you're putting something pleasant on your face. So we do know that when used appropriately, essential oils can be used safely in skincare for most people.
Well, and
And
that's such a good point because just like with people who may have some kind of a leaky gut or a delayed hypersensitivity to a food, just because it comes from a plant does not mean it's benign. If you're sensitive
right.
to it, you're going to have a reaction.
Yeah, and I think it's important to point out that there are rare cases, and this is rare. I don't want people feeling like they can never use essential oils or botanicals or anything like that, because this is rare. But there are people who are very allergic to individual compounds that are found in fragrances. Common one would be geraniol, which is really prevalent in rose essential oil, geranium essential oil, a bunch of other ones, as well as linalool, which is in just about everything. It's actually one of the lead compounds in CBD, which makes it anti-inflammatory in addition to the cannabinoids. But if people are allergic to that because they've become sensitized to it due to wearing synthetic perfume or using laundry detergent that's scented, hand soap that's scented, air fresheners that's scented, they will also then develop that allergy or sensitivity to it in an essential oil or even a plant. So this is something that does happen, and it's something that has actually started happening more with the clients that I've been attracting into my practice, which has been interesting. But that is a thing.
One of the things too that I find really interesting, because it took me a while to learn that I had chemical sensitivities and that some of these fragrances were actually making me ill. And
yeah.
I used to love perfume. My husband would go on a trip and he'd go to duty free at the airport and bring me back a bottle of fancy perfume, or, these other things. I really didn't realize how much I was using until I couldn't anymore.
Right.
And I think one of the things that's become startlingly clear, not just in my own life, but also from reading the book, is our perception of clean or what smells good is actually derived by somebody else telling us what we're supposed to like. And once
Absolutely.
you don't use it anymore, like sometimes I walk past someone and they're wearing perfume and I'm like, it's crazy how much your body resets when you're not doing it.
It is really interesting. And, I do use essential oils. I don't have a sensitivity to essential oils. I use them very sparingly in extremely low concentrations. I follow the clinical dosing requirement or suggestions that's based on science. And then I also infuse oils, carrier oils with plants. Mm-hmm. I find other ways to make aromatic preparations so that I can naturally scent the products that I make for myself in a way that is pleasing to me. And then, it fades, because honestly, I don't necessarily want to be smelling like a flower when after, like, it's so hot out. I don't want to go outside and be hot and sweaty and then I got to smell like that on top of everything else. It can be a little overwhelming. So a good rule of thumb is that if the fragrance, I should say, if the scent, if the aroma of your product stays on you for several hours after you've applied it and you can still smell it halfway through the day or at the end of the day or even the next day, that's synthetic. Because natural scents, natural aromatherapy, the essential oils, hydrosols, CO2 extracts, botanical blends, they don't last that long, even with base notes added to it, which have some fixative properties. They do not have the staying power that synthetics have. And that's one of the reasons why synthetics came about, is because, obviously they're cheaper and they last longer. So, people liked that. So a scent is something that I feel is very personal. It's meant to be enjoyed by you. It's meant to be part of your story, part of your memories, part of the memories that you create for the people in your life. But it doesn't have to necessarily have it be shared with everybody at the grocery store, or if you go take a class or you go to the office. Not everybody needs to be part of that story. That's just one thing. And with natural fragrances, that was something I had to kind of learn the hard way, because I am sensitive to synthetic fragrances, and that happened because I used to work in the cosmetics department right next to the fragrance counter. And I started getting nauseous and have headaches every day that I would go into work. Wow. And I couldn't figure out why. And then after I left that job and the nausea and the headaches went away, I was like, oh, well, that's got to be why. And then, if I have someone come and visit and they have very strong perfume, I can't even get too close to them. And then I can smell it in my house for days after. It's really that potent, and you don't realize it until you stop using it. But, like you were saying, what's clean, what's good, what's attractive has very little to do with what women want. And it has to do with what historically white men want. And beauty standards have been set historically by white men. Really moving from when Christianity kind of took over Europe, it was the priests that determined what was clean and what was appropriate for women. And then that kind of trickled through and spread across. And then other trendsetters like aristocrats, monarchs certainly set their own trends. But it was in order to be pleasing to men at the time. It wasn't for what they personally enjoyed. I mean, look, a really good example is Queen Elizabeth I. She's notorious for having that white opaque skin, which was obtained by a lead vinegar-based enamel powder called ceruse that was highly toxic, not just to the skin. I mean, it literally ate away at the skin over time, but it also could cause blindness. It also caused, obviously, heavy metal toxicity. Sure. And there are some experts who believe that part of how she died was due to her overuse of ceruse. And there were other aristocrats who definitely their deaths were linked to using ceruse. But it was, she started using it because she had smallpox scars that she wanted to cover. But then it continued to eat away at her face, but the only way to cover it was to put more of it on.
Yeah.
Right. But, Elizabeth was a really unique figure in history because she kind of did what she wanted and didn't care as much about what other people thought to a certain extent. So she was a trendsetter in that way. I'm not saying that that was a good thing, but, she was certainly not going to fall in line with certain belief systems if she didn't want to. Sure. But after that, things changed drastically, and the influence of the church, the influence of men in power over the beauty industry. If you even think about, go back to the 1950s, 1960s, maybe even earlier here in the 20th century, who was making the decisions for what women should buy? Men, right? Madison Avenue.
And one of the things that's so interesting about that too is it's more than just fragrance. It's more than just cosmetics. It's actually the whole skincare industry that has been co-opted by these myths of what is clean or what is good for the skin. One of the things that I learned a fair amount in the book was about the skin microbiome and how sensitive it is to so many things. And yet so much of what we're encouraged to put on our skin is disruptive to the microbiome, including all of these antibacterial products.
Antibacterial products, these anti-aging products that, remove the outermost layers, these chemical exfoliation treatments.
Oh, all the peel stuff. Yeah.
Oh, yes. Even harsh scrubs. It really, we've been disrupting our microbiome for, over a century with the cosmetics industry. Over cleansing, this, quest for cleanliness. Cleanliness is next to godliness and all of that. That is something that, now that we know about the microbiome, we've kind of gone almost in the other direction when it comes to certain things, to the point now that I don't know if you know this, there are class action lawsuits against some cosmetic companies. Wow. The one currently, it was in New York State, filed, I believe, within the last couple of months against Clinique for making microbiome claims in some of their products, because now skincare companies are claiming to have probiotic skincare and live strains.
Oh my gosh.
Which
yes,
is not actually possible.
I've seen that, and it's so interesting because, as the ingredient guru with the people that I work with, gut health and everything, I talk about the fact that so many foods now have probiotic claims on them. They're adding probiotics to things and, possibly actually overloading the gut microbiome because we're not meant to consume at that level. And we're meant to have a diverse array of colonies in there, not just, a few handpicked products. So to start seeing, probiotic enhanced claims on the front of the package. And there was even one that I happened to be looking at where the front of the package languaging did not match the back of the package ingredients.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that misdirection?
Yeah, it's really common in cosmetics, just like it is with food. And the worst thing with cosmetics is that there's less oversight from the FDA and the FTC than there is with food, because the FDA does have some oversight. The FTC does have some oversight when it comes to claims and language, but it does not regulate it in the same way it regulates food or drugs. So there's a bit of a free-for-all that does happen. Claims are rampant in cosmetics and skincare. Anything from you're free from claims, free from parabens, free from this, free from sulfates, free from that, fragrance free, hypoallergenic, dermatologist tested, allergy tested, non-comedogenic. These are meaningless terms. They are unregulated terms. Technically, there's no way to make a hypoallergenic claim on anything, because
what is hypoallergenic? Like, what does that really mean?
hypoallergenic, the implication is that it is safe for people who have allergies and that it will not cause an allergy.
Okay.
But there's no way you can prove that. People develop allergies a lot more frequently now than they ever have before, just because of this toxic world we live in this high stress life we live, right? Adults develop allergies to things out of the blue.
Right.
Children develop allergies.
Well, yeah,
It's
just
not
like the gut, the more you use it, the more you expose yourself to it on a daily, sometimes multiple times a day basis, the more likely you are to develop a sensitivity.
sure, and it's not even a sensitivity. Like, I'm talking outright allergy, like an anaphylactic reaction.
Oh,
People
wow.
can develop them out of nowhere, and it's just because we are just walking around with so much body burden and we have so much stress that our systems are just starting to misfire and react inappropriately to certain substances. You can be fine with using a certain product for years, and then all of a sudden you put it on one day and your face blows up.
Wow.
And this can happen. I'm not saying it happens all the time. I'm saying
Sure.
it can happen. So because of that, a hypoallergenic claim is not possible. When we formulate, we can put ingredients into a product that we know are less likely to cause an allergy. They contain fewer of these constituents that are known allergens. But to say that something is never going to cause an allergy on anyone ever, there's no way we can substantiate that. So that's one example. And I want to just talk about the microbiome claims a little bit more, because here's my prediction. And I have colleagues who agree with me on this. I think that because it is just people are saying all sorts of claims with the microbiome, that, the prebiotic skincare nourishes the microbiome. Well, a Unilever product in the UK got Facebook ads pulled by the Advertising Safety Agency there for that claim, and they actually submitted 7 different test results supporting that the prebiotics nourish the skin microbiome, and it was denied. They still did not feel that was strong enough to substantiate it. And I suspect that probiotics and microbiome claims are going to be the next thing to become regulated, because if we say that something is changing the microbiome or adding to the microbiome or altering the microbiome, that then becomes a structure and function claim, which is a medical claim. It is no longer a cosmetic claim, and that does require FDA testing and approval, which is a big, hefty, expensive, lengthy process that most small businesses especially don't have the ability to go through. Big businesses, big corporations, they can do what they want. They have the money, but the small businesses really have to be careful with these things. And when it comes to probiotic skincare on a label, the problem is that it's become kind of a catch-all phrase, which encompasses prebiotics, which are like the natural inulin fibers and plant sugars that, basically if you put plants in a skincare product, plants have these natural sugars. That's going to feed the microbiome. Okay, yay, prebiotic claim. And then you have postbiotics, which are essentially the antigens, after the live strain dies, or if it's, a bioferment where it's something that is the byproduct of the fermentation process, that would be considered more of a postbiotic, which still might have some benefits. We do know that fermentation does release certain peptides that have properties that would fall into the quote unquote anti-aging category. I hate that word, that's why I put it in quotes. But also some of these peptides have antimicrobial benefits, which they're enough to help with natural preservation without being so strong that they overpower the skin's microbiome. That's,
Well,
you have,
and part of it too, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but part of it too, I think, is that they're using those terms because they think that's what consumers want, but
yeah,
it doesn't mean that consumers understand them. They're the producers and the manufacturers who are making those front of package claims are doing it as a way to entice someone to buy their
absolutely.
product,
It's all
whether they
marketing.
understand, yes, whether they
That's what
understand
people
it
need
or
to
not.
understand. These are marketing claims. These are
Mhm.
not claims about efficacy or anything like that.
I'm
And when it
so
comes to
glad
the
you said that.
probiotics,
Yes.
when you see the word probiotic, it's the implication that there's live strains in there. Well, guess what? You put a bunch of microbes in a bottle, you close up that bottle, what happens? They're going to
They go
die.
through a life cycle, yes.
Right. They're going to eat whatever food happens to be in that bottle as long as they can without the presence of light and oxygen and water, and then they die. And
Yeah,
also, if the product contains water of any kind, it has to have a preservative. Otherwise, it's going to grow pathogens.
yeah.
Well, preservatives don't just say, just like antibiotics don't just say, we're only going to kill the bad guys and we're going to leave the good guys alone. It doesn't
That's
do that.
such a
So
good
adding
point.
a
Yeah,
preservative to a skincare product is going to kill whatever live strains are there anyway.
yeah.
So that's a huge area of misinformation that is being perpetuated by many brands, both large and small these days, in the microbiome kind of context. And it is something that I think we're going to start to see more oversight, and it's going to be a
Well,
wake-up call for certain people.
we'll definitely have to keep an eye out for that. So I
Yeah,
have one last question I wanted to ask you.
sure.
So in the book, like I said, he starts by mentioning that he has not showered in 5 years. Not that I'm recommending that everybody do that, but as the esthetician, skincare professional, what would be your top couple of things that someone could do to help clean up their skin or
Okay.
their skincare routine?
So in general, I do think that people over cleanse. I think
Mm.
that we've got this whole routine in there, this whole idea of, you know, double cleansing. If you're wearing makeup, you've got to remove the makeup.
Mm.
But I think that we can do so in a more gentle way than some of the makeup removers and foaming cleansers out there. Oil cleansing is really, really effective at removing makeup. And it's also not going to strip away the skin's barrier function. It's not going to have a negative effect on the overall integrity of the skin, which is important. And it also is going to kind of nourish and seal in hydration while it cleanses. So I recommend oil cleansing, especially for makeup removal. I also want to just let people know that they do need oil in their skincare products. There is a lot of misinformation that people who have oily skin can't use oils, or, you know, people shouldn't use oils. The majority of the mass-produced skincare products on the market, if it's a cream or a lotion, it's mostly water. And if you don't have enough oils on your skin, that water just evaporates. And that can actually dehydrate your skin, which can affect its function in a negative way. So I am a huge fan of carrier oils like jojoba oil, hemp seed oil, rose hip seed oil. Look for those in your products. When it comes to how often to cleanse, what I personally do, and you can follow this or not, but you know, I am a little bit of a minimalist.
Well, you have
Similar.
fabulous skin. So.
Well, thank you. I'm a minimalist when it comes to my own skincare routine. I splash water on my face in the morning, and then I spritz on a hydrosol, and then I put on one of my botanical lotions that I've made. And then for nighttime, I remove whatever makeup I have with oil. Then I take my shower. And then after that, again, I use the hydrosol, which is a distillate. It's basically like a floral water that is a byproduct of making essential oils, but it's not essential oils. I use that for my toner. It's less drying and less irritant than some of the toners out there. And then I put my cream back on. Or if it's summertime, I might just put a carrier oil blend on top instead of like a cream, because my skin doesn't need that much moisture over the summer.
Yeah.
If I'm going outside during the day, I do wear sunscreen.
Mhm.
And I like to follow the EWG sunscreen guide for choosing sunscreens. And also Made Safe has some really nice recommendations for non-toxic sunscreens, because there's been some issues with sunscreens lately these days. I shower when I feel like I need to shower. Like if I've had a really sweaty workout, or, you know, we've had a heat wave here, I've been outside a lot, I don't want to go to sleep all sweaty and all of that. So,
Yeah.
you know, but I'm going to say I don't like suds up my whole body. I mean, this, not to be blunt, but, you know, hair, face, pits, and parts, and feet. That's pretty much it. The rest of it just under the shower.
Right.
And I use a very gentle body wash. I don't use anything with a harsh foaming agent or too alkaline of a soap or anything like that.
Yeah. So these whole, 6 or 7 step things,
Most
not a
people
good
do
choice.
not. I would even say nobody needs all of that.
That's
If
so
you derive pleasure in using a routine like that, that's great, but nobody actually needs it. Nobody
yeah.
has like a serum deficiency or anything like that. And, you know, when it comes to nutrient deficiencies in the skin, we fill that through our diets. We don't fill that with topical skincare. Most people don't realize that the skin that you see on the surface, that was formed inside with nutrients that were derived from the blood, and the food is where the blood gets the nutrients. What you
Yes,
put on the surface, it, you know, we do know that there is absorption and penetration that happens to a certain degree, but
Mhm.
it's not going to get down into the dermis, which is where the cells form.
Yeah, your inside is reflected on your outside. So if your outside
Right.
is dry, chances are your inside's dry too, and you need to
Sure.
start
Absolutely.
adding fats and healthy oils and looking at what's going on in the gut. So Rachel,
Absolutely.
how would people, if they wanted to learn more about you and what you do, where would they go?
So I have 2 websites. I have createyourskincare.com if you're interested in learning how to make your own skincare, or if you have a skincare business and you are interested in kind of growing that. I can help you both with the business side of things as well as the formulation and the DIY side of things. And then if you are a skincare practitioner or a wellness practitioner who's interested in learning how to be a certified nutritional aesthetics practitioner, we have a 9-month accredited training program for that at
Nice.
skinwellnesspro.com. And I have blogs. Between the 2 of them, we have close to 1,000 blog posts full of information on both websites. So you can feel free to click on the blog and do a search, and you'll find what you're looking for.
That sounds great. Well, this has been really fascinating. I learned so much. And
Awesome.
thank you for, it's always great to talk with you, but thank you so much for sharing.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Take care, folks. Don't forget to click like and subscribe down below. And that way you'll be notified when things are posted on the channel. Have a great day. Talk to you later.